Hey there, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you joining us here today. I'm Professor Shane Snipes here with the Borough of Manhattan Community College and specifically around the Citizen Entrepreneur Explorers program. We are doing step 5 today in the 5-step process for doing research for students, not necessarily at the graduate level, but any level. So anyone who's getting started in research can use this special type of community-centered, community-first research to do all kinds of different things. Our particular focus with the CEEP program is around entrepreneurship. So when you're doing your project, you just have to remember you're studying entrepreneurship in your neighborhood, in your community, and this step 5 is probably one of the most important steps. And I know it's one of Jessica's most favorite steps because she gets to really work with the students and get them engaged with their communities and work with them in different ways. So it's always exciting to see this particular step and the descriptions around it. I am Professor Snipes. My studies are specifically in entrepreneurship education and its ways that mindfulness can improve that education. I came up with the CEEP program a few years ago. And it's been rolling nicely, but you can watch one of our other videos about the basic high-level overview of CEEP. For this one, Jessica, introduce yourself.
Everybody, my name is Jessica. I'm a research assistant with the CEEP program. I'm a current first-year developmental psychology student at University of Michigan. I've been working with Dr. Snipes and the CEEP program for about a year now. And so decided to talk to you all about community outreach today.
All right, so let's get it started.
Okay. Okay. All right. Just pulling this up quick. Okay. All right, so this is our community outreach step. So just to give you a little background about this step, with this step, this challenges students to go outside of their comfort zone and basically report back their findings to the community. So what do they find in their specific communities? And we ask them to find a group, like a community center, a community board, even a church, to go back and to have a dialogue with the community members. So let's see what they say, what feedback do they provide. So that's basically this step in a nutshell. So as you can see, this is our last step, kind of ties in everything together, wraps it up. So it's a final step. And so as I said before, community outreach can take place basically wherever the community gathers. So community centers, community boards, just where residents gathered. And so in every neighborhood, they usually have some type of, so some neighborhoods even have specific business associations. We don't require students to go to a business association to report their research, but we do encourage them to find a place where there are more than like 2 people talking so that they can get different perspectives on what people thought about their research. So in the past, people have reported back on, so there's been projects of people reported on, businesses' responsibility to give back to the community. And so they got feedback directly from community members talking about what they found and what people thought about it. And it was a very engaging dialogue. And I believe that that's like the point of this project. The point of this project, all the other steps build upon this step, so you're doing this research, but why are you doing this research? You're doing this research so that you can maybe find something relevant to the neighborhood that would be beneficial. Maybe you found this exciting finding that's unique to the neighborhood that could help entrepreneurship in some way. So that's kind of why this step is so important.
There too. I'll just add to that little piece there that you were just talking about. And just to say, we've got this opportunity as researchers in the community. It is different when you're doing research in the community that is your actual neighborhood. Take a moment to think about that. Take a moment to think about the fact that you can actually affect change in your neighborhood by simply observing it and studying it, and then reporting back on what you see. Most people never spend time doing this. They don't have the time necessarily to complete these types of research projects to uncover what entrepreneurship looks like in their community. So as you start to uncover that, you've created something of value. I know you think in the beginning, it's like, this is just an assignment. This is just something that's required for class. But the moment you start sharing it back to your neighborhood and you see their reactions, as so many of our students have, they're shocked. They're actually shocked at the response that they get. So keep that in mind as we go through these steps with you.
Okay, so one of the questions I get a lot while helping students, so it's like, how can I present my research? So this is just one of the ways that you can present research. So you can create a presentation. So the most standard way, you just create a PowerPoint or a different type of slide. And you want to introduce in the presentation, if you do want to create a slides type presentation, you want to include the title of your project, the date, what your major is. So if you're a community college student or college student, just want to let them know what major you're in, because you don't necessarily have to be a business major to engage in CEEP research. And then you can also link your social media. If you, for example, if you started a business or you have an idea, you can link your social media so that you can get, some publicity there. The second slide, you want to include your research question and hypotheses. So what did you expect to happen? So what were you looking for? And before you began your research, what were you expecting to happen? And then you want to just briefly explain your research methods and your gathering process. So you could just say, like, I sent out surveys with 15 items on it that talked about, and you could just insert your topic. You just briefly, just let people know how you went about doing this research. And then lastly, you want to include your results and implications. So your results are, okay, what did you actually find? And why, in the implications, is why is this important? So then also other things I didn't include in the presentation today, but I want to touch upon is you can also make a video presentation. So a lot of students are kind of confused about this, so I just want to clarify this. So if you want to make a video presentation to send it to a community board or community center, you still have to engage in dialogue. So if you're making a video about your project and explaining all the steps, you still have to engage in a feedback type of conversation with community members. So for example, you could send them a video, play it for them in person or on Zoom. If you have some anxiety around presenting, that could be an option, but you still want to have, direct feedback from them. So it wouldn't suffice to just send them a video, so like a community board video of you presenting. You would need to, the part of this, the important part of this step is to get feedback. So what do people in your community that you gathered this data from, what do they think about what you're doing? What things do they think you can improve on? What do they think the strengths of your research were? And so that way you can engage in research. And maybe if you wanted to continue this study further, you could get actually direct feedback from the community to help strengthen your project. So that's kind of why we kind of want you to report back to the organization.
Yes. And I'll add right on to that, Jessica, because that's a really important point. It's great that we can, in this day and age, record something, watch it when and where we can. But you may actually engage in a dialogue via email, right? Where you send the video over and then you list a few questions after they watch the video and say, can you please respond to these questions, right? And also remember, when you send it over to a person, it's always better to send it to a group of people. So if you can find an online community where you could share it, it's a neighborhood community, Maybe there's a next door like neighborhood community where you could post this video and, ask to see, like, I'd love to get your feedback on this. I uncovered this about the neighborhood that's there inside of next door, which is a very specific, localized, almost like Facebook. So you could also post it in a place like that. But if you don't get any feedback from what you post, it's important to follow up and go to an organization that will give you feedback, that will provide you some insights onto what this means to them as a neighborhood and as a community member, just like you. You're talking to your neighborhood, and that's so important.
Okay. So after you have collected your data, you've analyzed your results, you've reported back to a community organization, kind of the last step is to create this, so it's included in the CEEP research project. So that's the last section, kind of like in the discussion/conclusion section of the report. You want to report back what they said. What interactions did you have? What feedback did they have? So as Dr. Snipes was just saying, it could even be an email dialogue of you, sending a video and then having an email correspondence with someone. So when you're reporting this and including this in your report, your project, you want to, as much as possible, include direct quotes from community members. So that could be asking them to be recorded if you don't want to spend time like taking notes throughout and just listen to what they're saying. You can ask for if they don't mind being recorded, so that you can actually have direct quotes. So for example, you can say, Tim of the community center, he thought that my idea was great. He thought I could improve in this area. He said this and that. And so have direct quotes from what they're actually saying so that, we can, you can more holistically share what actually happened during the meeting. So there should be dialogue between you and community members. So can't emphasize that enough. So it should be a back and forth. It shouldn't be, they just consume kind of your presentation and then you go about your day. It should be a dialogue. So it should be a back and forth of like, oh, what should I do better? Okay, thank you for your feedback. Any questions? You can explain, why you chose to engage in this type of research. Like why were you interested in this question in the first place? And so, yeah. And you also want to include information about the organization and the meeting. So sometimes students do forget this part, but we want to, potentially reach back. So the CEEP program potentially wants to reach back and maybe connect with this organization in the future. So this could also help, future CEEP participants to know which organizations are responsive to students, So this is important. So, and also knowing the context of, where you presented your research is important as well. So just include that in the report. You could just like a 1-2 sentence thing of, I reported at my local community center, and this is the name of it, and just some general information about where you presented it. And then you also want to get the names of the attendees you spoke with. So if you can, if possible, you should get the names of who you actually spoke with. So, there could be greater follow-up. So, stop sharing.
Yeah, I'll add to that with those pieces. Your research never stops. I mean, once you become a good researcher, you're kind of always on the hunt for the full information that you can gather in that moment. So when you're presenting back to your community, you're still kind of in research mode, even though you're not using this data or this information specifically for another set of research or another set of analysis. It is part of that last page or so of your project where you really get in there and give us all the nitty gritty detail of what it felt like to do your presentation in front of other people, all the pieces of what it was like to be in that space, the types of questions that you received, and the specific ones. As much as you can when you're delivering it in person. So if you've got an opportunity to stand up in front of a Rotary Club or a business association and give your presentation for 5 minutes, capture that presentation and then capture the 2 minutes that you have for questions at the end and say, if they don't have questions for you, pose a question to the audience in that moment so that you can gather back from them their responses. You will just want to make sure you close that loop and not just say like, are there any questions? And then of course there's crickets. Then you can say, well, as a question to you guys, I'd love to hear this as far as your feedback on this research. If you can put it in the chat, if you're doing it on Zoom, or if you could just answer this question for me, a few of you, and then look around and call on someone. You know, I do that to you guys all the time in classes, right? Call on someone and say, you seemed really engaged with the presentation. What were some of your thoughts about it? People will tell you, and they won't be mean. I mean, you're a student and you're out there sharing something that you've uncovered for the community. So don't feel intimidated or afraid by that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll also say, so when you are kind of going back to the data collection step, so you can watch that video as well. It's kind of the same. So finding organizations to present to is kind of the same kind of idea where you want to cast a wide net of potential places you can present to. So you only have to present to one organization. It'd be great if you wanted to present to more than one, but for the purposes of a project, you only have to present to one organization. So casting a wide net. So if there are 3 potential community organizations, so a church, a community center, a community board in your neighborhood, you would like essentially want to, so you may have a preference in mind. So maybe you want to present at the community center. Given that this is a semester-long project, you want to reach out as early as possible when you can even reach out when you get your research ideas. So you don't have to even have a complete project to reach out. You can just let them know, I'm doing this project. It's on this, I'll be finished usually like around this date. Can I present my research to you when it's finished? And then you can already establish connection before you even finish your research project, which can make it easier in the long end instead of trying to find a place after you finish, like after you've completed your research step and you have limited time to do that step. So I think it's important. You don't necessarily have to reach out to like every organization in your neighborhood, but it's good to reach out to at least 1 or 2 or 3 at the most, because some organizations may not be more responsive, and especially during COVID right now, we're still dealing with this. Even though things are changing, we're still dealing with this, and so some organizations may not be functioning anymore or have a limited capacity. So it's good to keep those things in mind when you're looking for a place to report your findings to. And it can be specific to you. So I just make sure that, there's more than 3 people there. So you can get like greater and better feedback. And it's a greater dialogue between you and community members. So you always want to get like differing opinions or, kind of diversity of opinions, because that will help strengthen your research in that. So, yeah. So that's what I have for today for the community outreach. You can stop by our website, entrepreneurs.com. We have a downloadable research guide, which walks you through all the steps and gives you some more information about each and every step and how to go about this CEEP research process.
And I'll add a note too there. And that is when you're thinking about these things and you're putting it together, don't discount the value of what you've created. Really look at the fact that you've uncovered something original that no one else has put together this way before. Because this project isn't like a lot of other projects that you might have done in various different courses. You are actually going out and doing this original type of research, uncovering something new and assembling what it looks like and analyzing it in your own special way. This is different than Googling something and pulling all the pieces down and assembling a set of information that someone and other people have already done before. This is special, like you've created something very special. And so sharing it back to your community is also another special opportunity for you. And I don't want you to look too far and say like, this is just another project. You can actually affect change. At least one of our community members has had direct conversation with the community boards that make decisions about different things going on in their communities and their neighborhoods. And the curiosity that was written up in some of their reports from these council members, these elected officials, was very high. Like they were intrigued by what was uncovered. So that could tweak the mind and affect people who are making policy. So consider that too. You can actually affect change.
That's a great point. Yeah. So that's what we have today for the community outreach. You can check out our other steps. So we have a video for each step that walks you through the process, gives you a little bit more context of what each step entails. So be sure to check those out on YouTube.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.